Hey there, Scott here from Social Energy Presents, and thanks once again for joining us. We've got a great episode for you today featuring Curtis Stigers, an internationally acclaimed American jazz singer. Curtis achieved a number of hits in the early 90s, most notably the international hit I Wonder Why, which in 1991 reached number 5 in the UK and number 9 on the US charts. Curtis has worked with many legendary artists including Elton John, Eric Clapton, Prince, Bonnie Raitt, Rod Stewart, the Allman Brothers, and Joe Cocker, to name just a few. But perhaps one of his most iconic pieces of work is the widely recognized theme song from the internationally successful drama Sons of Anarchy, which he co-wrote and performed. And today, Curtis joins us from his home for an intimate look back at his successes in his career and to bring us up to speed on what he's been working on next. So sit back, relax, and get ready as Social Energy now presents you with your Backstage Pass.
So, did I read somewhere you have 3 dogs?
You might have read that, but that was before we got our 4th dog.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
No, it's a sickness. My wife is a dog nut, and I have become a dog nut because of her. But she in the middle of the pandemic, she was up in the middle of the night because she runs a homeless shelter, and so she was always woken up in the middle of the night by some crisis that needed to be taken care of, and then she couldn't get back to sleep, and so she'd surf the internet, and she found this. There was an auction for one of her favorite charities, and so she just bid. She just to bid it up, just to help the charity. She bid on this Bernie Doodle, and now we have a 4th dog. We have and he's our largest dog as well. He's our puppy, and he's a year old, but he's big. So anyway, what are you gonna do?
That's sweet. Well, I'm much like you. I mean, I became probably like you. I was never able to have a dog because of what I did for a living.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, you leave town all the time.
Yeah, so when I met Kelly, she had little Bella, and little Bella we had to put down in 2020 because of lymphoma.
Oh, sorry.
She was 15 years old. She had a long life, but it was still sad. And of course, the last days she was alive, she was playing in the yard and stuff. We're going, oh God, we're putting this dog down. But of course, she was panting. You could tell that she was stressing, and Yeah. But anyway, and we had made a pact that we weren't going to get another dog because I wanted Kelly to travel with me, and that was the one thing that was holding us back. Oh, look at that! And then along December 19th of 2020, we adopted Jenny from Guanajuato, Mexico. And Jenny is she was a spaniel-looking dog. But for Christmas this past year, we bought each other the Epoch DNA test for her, and found out she's like this far away from a purebred Cocker Spaniel.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah. And she's just a lovely dog. I spoil her rotten. I'm an absolute crazy doggy daddy, Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she's my whole world centers around this dog, which has never happened in my life. Really. The last time I had a dog was when I was like eight years old.
Yeah, no, that was the same with me. I had dogs, when I was a kid, and then I moved out of my mom's house and I was 17, and that was it. And then I was married for 19 years, and to a woman who was very allergic to all animals. So, and again, we tour for a living. We don't have. It's not possible to do that. So, but now, when I go out of town, the dogs have someone to be with. They have my wife to be with. And then,
yeah, exactly. That's the thing, is that, and the nice thing about us is that we have a village. I live in Victoria now, not in Vancouver.
Nice.
And so my wife's family is all here. So I've got a sister-in-law, I've got a father-in-law, I've got stepdaughters, I've got everybody that rallies around that'll look after little Jenny.
That's great.
So, yeah, and she's got lots of love around her, and so we never have to worry if we go away. We're going away next Monday for a trip, which is nice. So, So what kind of dogs do you have?
Well, that one you just saw is Hank. He's a Yorkie poo.
Hank, yeah. I love it.
That's Hank. He's named after Hank Mobley, the jazz tenor saxophonist. One of my heroes.
How old is he? Or what kind of dog? Sorry, what kind of dog?
He's a Yorkie poo. So he basically looks like a poodle, but he's half Yorkie. his dad was a very small French poodle, and his mom was a larger, still a small Yorkie, and so I just call him the Poodle. Actually, the name of my new record company is Pandemic Poodle Records.
I know, I saw that and I laughed.
that's after him. That's Hank, and then we've got. This is Boo. Here we go. This is Boo, and she's the oldest. Hi Boo. She doesn't like showbiz at all. She shies away when the music starts for my live stream show. She goes out back, but she's 14 and she is a Yorkie. Well, she's a Morkie, so she's a Maltese Yorkie, but really she looks like a very, very small Yorkie. She only weighs about 2 pounds. She terrifies the rest of the dogs. She is the meanest. She runs this joint. She's just.
I love Yorkies. I always have. Well, Bella, the one that we had to put down, Bella was a Shorkie, I guess they call it, a Shih Tzu Yorkie.
Oh yeah, great combo.
Yeah, very, very cute. But anyway, yeah. And what's the other ones?
And then so we have 2 more. We've got a Portuguese water dog who's sick.
Wow.
His name is Louis, and he's beautiful. He's brown and white. He'll wander in one of these moments here. And then so he's a Portuguese water dog, Louis. And then we've got a 1-year-old Bernie Doodle. He's a Bernese mountain dog mixed with a standard poodle. So he weighs about. Louis weighs, the Portuguese water dog weighs about 55 pounds. I'd say Stanley probably weighs 65 pounds. He outgrew Louis by a little bit. And he's a very smart dog, the Bernie Doodle, but he's also a puppy. So he's still an absolute scoundrel. He is always eating something he's not supposed to. And the minute he does it, he knows that he's done something wrong and he sort of slinks around the house. He's very smart, but he's evil.
So you said he's a year-old, so he probably won't grow much more than that.
Please God, let this be it. Yeah, he's big enough. He's just a little bit bigger than I was hoping he'd be, but he didn't get as big as they said he could get. They said he could go over 100 pounds, and I'd say he's maybe 70 pounds at most. So.
Oh wow! So what part of the world are you in?
I live in Boise, Idaho, which is where I grew up, northwest part of the state. So not that far from you. I moved to New York back in 1987 when I was 21 to seek my fame and fortune, and spent 16 years there. And I came back to Boise in 2003 with, then I had a wife. Eventually we were divorced, but we came back. We brought our daughter back, our 3-year-old daughter back to Boise in 2003 to raise her. New York had become, unwieldy for us as parents. And also it was right after 9/11, and New York was pretty scary at that time. So it was a good choice. It was a nice place to raise a kid. I had a plan to create a ski buddy for myself, which I did. She's a great skier. And, she got to sort of grow up with the mountains and wildlife around her. But now she goes to college in New York City, or just outside of New York. So she abandoned me and went back to live my dream life.
Oh, wow. Well, you did well in New York, though. You were signed with Clive Davis or something, weren't you?
Yeah, 1991, my first album came out, and that was on Arista Records, and Clive was the guy who, really one of his A&R people, Mitchell Cohen, signed me, but of course Clive he's the when you go into Clive's office and he's got a picture of him with Springsteen and a piguiture of him with Whitney and a picture of him with Janis Joplin, a picture of him with, Miles Davis. It's like, yeah. Boy, I guess this is the place I should end up. Because back then, in 1990 actually was when I signed the deal. There was a kind of a bidding war for me, that I had a great lawyer and a manager, another guy manager who created this little feeding frenzy around me at that time. And so I had 6 or 7 labels bidding for me. Clive, it seemed like the thing to do. He was the legend. And I knew the issues I might run into, which I did run into, which was creative control and trying to maintain who I was as an artist. But it was just too tasty an opportunity to pass up. And I think in the long run, it was a good idea. I became a success right away. My first single, I Wonder Why, was a top 10 hit all over the world. And that first album of mine sold 1.5 million copies. So
yeah, that was a great single, by the way. And
thank you.
Yeah, really good. And like, what a first kick at the can, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean,
you had some incredible players on that album too, I read.
Yeah, that was that song. That the record was produced by two different people. Most of the all but 4 of the songs were produced by Glenn Ballard, and Glenn and I wrote "I Wonder Why" together, as well as some others. And so for the Glenn Ballard side of the record, it was John Robinson on bass and John Robinson on drums. Excuse me, Abe Laboriel on bass. Buzzy Featon at least on the tracking session. Bill Payne from Little Feat played organ. Randy Kerber played piano. And then we had, the people that came in. Michael Landau played a lot of the guitars on it, so he became a friend, and it was amazing. And then on the other side of the record, with Danny Korchmar producing, which was just great in itself to be.
Yeah, Cooch is like
Cooch.
Cooch sort of rises his head in so many different areas. I mean, I was just talking to Peter Asher, and he just loves Cooch as well. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think I'm pretty sure that Cooch was the way that Peter Asher found out about James Taylor, because Correct. Cooch, of course, was his teenage buddy. They played in bands together when they were kids. Cooch. So Cooch's side of my record was the tracking session was Jeff Porcaro on drums. Amazing. T.M. Stevens on bass, David Paich on keyboards, and was it Michael? Yeah, Michael Landau played guitar, and then of course Cooch played guitars on stuff as well. I mean, he's such a great guitar player. So it was amazing. I mean, I was a 24-year-old kid playing with guys that I'd been listening to my whole life on records. It was really, really exciting.
Well, Porcaro was like, what a wonderkind, Well, he was 17 when he played on Silk Degrees.
Yeah, it's what
like,
he was.
When you hear the drumming on Silk Degrees, you go, that's a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah. He was extraordinary. Lord. He was a really nice guy too. It was he died not that long after that record, just a couple of years later, and it was really sad. He was very nice to me. He was David Paich was a little crusty. He kind of had the sort of the I'm here to work. He might have had a rough night the night before or something. So he wasn't terribly lovey-dovey with me. But Porcaro was really nice, very sweet, and we chatted. And I enjoyed those sessions immensely. It was really exciting.
Well, what a groove that guy. It's like, from the very first time that I heard Toto, and then, with Hold the Line and going, like just that opening, don't, that whole groove coming in. I loved it. Then putting it together that, these are the guys that played on Silk Degrees, which was an album that I loved. So all that stuff sort of started, then you start researching who these people are. And it's incredible.
Yeah. And the fact that he started so young, it's really impressive. I mean, they were both, that whole band was so amazing, but my God, Porcaro, he had such a groove. He had such a pocket, and it's a shame he went so young.
Yeah. Way too bad. But I gotta bring up your career because you were talking about Clive Davis, and you said something about creative control, and I'm going, I mean, you're like Neil Young. You sort of go whatever way suits your fancy. Because
thanks for saying that. I mean, I think in my head, I think that, but I never say that out loud. Yeah, I'm like Neil Young, because obviously Neil Young is a god, and he's just like a piece of art in his own right. But I definitely I have gone down a lot of roads that I think people didn't expect me to go down. I have confounded publicists and A&R guys and managers over the years, because you can't really put me in a bucket. I mean, Neil Young somehow has managed to make a lot more money than I have and sold a lot more records being that guy. But I do what I want to do, and I don't do what I don't want to do. I guess that's more important. I couldn't make the records that Clive Davis wanted me to make. The first record kind of ended up slicker than I heard it in my head, and it had mostly to do with Clive Davis breathing down the neck of the producers that I worked with, because both producers, were capable of making great pop records that weren't slicker than they needed to be. And my first record, I love that record. I'm proud of it. The songs are mine. I was there. That was me. But I wanted to move left. I didn't want to stay there in the middle of the road making records that sounded like the early 90s. I wanted to sound more like, frankly, I wanted to be John Hyatt. I wanted to be Bonnie Raitt. That's who I really was sort of seeing myself as. And I got pegged as Michael Bolton Jr. And that wasn't what I wanted to be known as. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter.
Yeah. Very interesting. God, I had a question. It was perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay, because it was what you were saying. And then
about the creative control and Clive and
No, it wasn't just that though, but it's okay. It'll probably come back around. I'm sure I'll find it. But the thing about, I know what I was going to say. It's interesting you bring all that up, because I remember back a few years ago, this girl that I knew, an acquaintance of my then wife, who's passed away now, sadly, but she was an acquaintance of mine, and I hung up with her husband and all that sort of stuff. But she came up to me, she says, I've got a singer I just love. I know you've never heard of him. And she said, but he's just incredible. And I said, who's that? She says, Curtis Stigers. I said, Curtis Stigers, I played with him. She goes,
I've played with him.
She goes, F off, right? Like, that's what. And I said, no, honestly, I did. And so it took me a while. And finally, when we got together, I showed her a little blurb of us playing together on the live at the rehearsal hall. And she goes, I can't believe it. You know everybody. But I was trying to figure out where she would have found out about you. And then I was late to the dance. I'm watching Sons of Anarchy. And then I see the credits for the song. I went, holy smokes, that's Curtis? And I'm going, okay, so because that's a whole different direction. And what I knew you as this jazz sax player guy when I first, came into your world. So then I put it together. Her husband, who is a Harley guy, he probably was watching Sons of Anarchy, loved the theme song, found out who you were, and followed you in that direction. So because I couldn't quite put together how she might have heard of you. And then I realized quite a few years later, actually, that it was from Sons of Anarchy, because I didn't even watch Sons of Anarchy till, maybe a year or so ago. And what a great show. Oh my God.
That's cool. It's cool. Is a Hamlet on motorcycles, basically.
Yeah. And so that must have done well for you.
It was cool. I had a ball doing it. My old friend and collaborator, Bob Thiel Jr., was the music supervisor for the show. And he called me, 6 months before the show was to premiere on TV. And he said, hey, I just wrote music for the theme song to this TV show that I'm the music supervisor for. Can you write some lyrics? And I said, sure. What's it about? And he told me, bloodthirsty gun running bikers. And he sent me a little trailer for it. And so I wrote some lyrics, did a demo, or, sang. They sent me a track and I just sang over that and sent it back with these lyrics I'd written. And
can I interject? Did they have a melody for you? Or did you make it up?
Yeah. The song was there. I bent it here and there, because that's how I sing. I tend to, I when I write songs, I tend to be the lyricist and the guy who makes the melody singable, so I wrote some lyrics, sang it, sent it back, and the creator of the show and executive producer Kurt Sutter heard it, liked it, tweaked the lyrics, sort of rewrote the lyrics and sent it back, which is fine with me. And so he and I wrote the lyrics, and Bob Thiel and Dave Kushner wrote the music. And I sent back that version, right? Just thinking I was going to be the songwriter and they were going to get somebody else to sing it. And they used my version. They used the version that, that I sang. So I was the voice of Sons of Anarchy, and it brought a lot of new fans to me. It was very cool. I mean, I didn't make the fortune that I could have had it been on regular TV. If that show had been on regular TV or say pay TV, I would have done very well. It was on kind of that basic cable. So, and at that time in particular, there was just we didn't make much money from it. Maybe some, I got a check now and then, but just to be connected with it was really fun. And I can hang my hat on it. We also were nominated for an Emmy Award, for writing it. So that was very cool. Got to go to the Emmys and meet some cool people and drink some champagne, and we lost to John Williams.
Oh, well, that's a good person. It's a good person to lose to.
Might as well lose to John Williams if you're going to lose.
If you're going to lose to anybody. It's like, okay, I don't mind that. Yeah, because you contributed a few more songs to the soundtrack. I'm sure I saw your name much more than once.
Yeah, there's another one that people really have gravitated towards, which was basically we redid John the Revelator, the Sun House version. Sun House, the great blues man, did an a cappella version of John the Revelator. Tell me who's that riding? John the Revelator, tell me who's that writing. Did an a cappella version that you can see on YouTube. It's amazing. He's on TV, and it's so gorgeous. And so Bob created this, this great bluesy, swampy version for the final show of the first season, the big I think it was Opie's wife's funeral. And it lasted, the song, the actual track, I think lasted through like 15 minutes of the show. But so I sing that a lot. I often I'll sing that song a cappella and then kick into the theme, Sons of Anarchy theme with my band right out of it. And I have a new album out now, which is a look back at my 30 years in the record business. And I've re-recorded I re-recorded I Wonder Why and You're All That Matters to Me and Never Saw a Miracle, as well as some other songs from my later records. And one of the songs that, one of those other songs is the Sons of Anarchy theme. And we do it now with a jazz quintet, and it sounds quite different, but it's still the same song, but songs evolve, and so have I.
Yeah, well, you've carved out a real niche for yourself. It's nice to see, because like I said, comparing you to Neil Young, because it's a rarity. Usually you sort of get pegged and you're in a hole and that's where you stay. Not many people get to say, I think I'm going to go over there. So, but I guess you probably did it early enough in your career that you were able to, sort of feel comfortable doing it. Well,
yeah. I made my first 2 records for Arista, for Clive Davis, and then I realized I couldn't do another record with him. We just did not see eye to eye. He wanted me to sing other people's songs. I wanted to sing my own songs. He wanted me to be, very slick, middle of the road pop singer. And I, like I said, I wanted to be a singer songwriter. I wanted to do a lot of different things. I also wanted to be a jazz singer because I grew up studying jazz. I figured when I signed with Clive Davis, he would love me for my art, and he would let me make the kinds of records I wanted to. He'd let me make pop records. He'd let me make jazz records. But he just wanted this one thing. So I kind of had to dismantle my pop career to do it. I went to Columbia for a record and I made Brighter Days. That was my 3rd album, came out in 99. And I finally got to make that singer-songwriter record. But about 15 people bought it. And so there was a certain point there at the end of the 90s where I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? If I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, what is that thing right now that I want to do? And I decided I wanted to make jazz records. And so I signed with Concord Records, and I took this album that I had quietly made when I was still back at Arista, with Arista's money. The vice president told me if I didn't want to have to deal with Clive all the time, I should make a record that wasn't a pop record. So I made a jazz record. Clive heard it and he let me go. Anyway, so I went to Concord. I know it was great, which is what I'd been trying to do forever. So it worked out. What I figured out at that point in my career is when I do the things that I want to do, things seem to work out. I might not make the zillions of dollars that, some people make, but I get to play music that moves me, and I somehow manage to make a living. I somehow manage to keep paying the mortgage and, being able to afford to raise my kid. I'm putting my daughter through college now, and I can do that because I have a job that I love and it pays enough. It doesn't, again, I'm not a superstar and I'm not a millionaire, but I'm, I work for a living and I get paid. So anyway, I made that Brighter Days record, and it was the record, it was really a record that I loved. Jim Keltner played on it, and Davey Farragher from The Imposters, from Elvis Costello and the Imposters, and Val McCallum, and what's his name? Benmont Tench from the Heartbreakers played on it, and Jackson Browne sang some background. It was amazing, and nobody bought it, so I became a jazz artist. Where at least I expected I wasn't going to make any money.
Well, you certainly have it seems like you've got a great following in England.
Yeah, England and Europe. I mean, Germany, the UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, particularly Denmark, are great
and they've embraced your jazz side.
They have. They've come along with me. As long as I play "I Wonder Why" and "You're All That Matters to Me," the songs that they know and "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding" from the Bodyguard soundtrack. As long as I play the songs they know, they'll follow me down these roads where I play standards or I play weird jazz versions of Elvis Costello songs. There's enough of them that have stayed with me through these years and allowed me to experiment. So yeah, it's great. That's where I make my living. I still tour in the US. I still keep trying to maybe break it open a little bit more here, but I make so much more money in the UK and Germany and Europe, basically Northern Europe, and occasionally get down to Italy and Spain and Portugal. But it's cool. I mean, to be honest, it's a lot more fun to go play in Paris and London and Edinburgh and Berlin and Copenhagen than it is to go to, Des Moines or Omaha. Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to Des Moines and Omaha, but, I get to go to these incredible vacation places and play music and then eat great food and drink great beer and see the world. So I've been very lucky I have failed in a really good way. I sort of bailed out of the pop world into this world that is much more suitable to who I am as a person.
Well, you're probably miles ahead just in happiness, and that there's a lot to be said for that. There's imagine being pigeonholed in that, like you said, the sort of new Michael Bolton thing that you hate, and now you're going to work every day and dreading what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely I recorded a couple of songs with people that I really wasn't interested in working with because Clive wanted me to. And I have to say, it's still to this day, it rankles me. It gives me, I get a little bit nauseous when I think about it. And so it's better for me to make the music that I love and to do it my way. I'm a control freak. That's who I am. I know that about myself, and particularly about my music. I have to have the final say.
Well, if that's what makes you happy, I mean, that's the thing. Now, because if I'm not mistaken, getting back to England, Europe, etc., I think that's where Randy hit up with you, was in England, I think, because he was living.
We met, yes. Yes, he had a place in London, and Randy Bachman and Randy Bachman walked up to me in the Pizza Express Jazz Club, this little bitty jazz club that we played when I first started making jazz records. Randy Bachman comes up and says, "Hi, really great show." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man." Just not realizing who he was. I'm Randy Bachman. And I almost fell over. I mean, it was so exciting. I mean, I was a BTO fan as a kid. I mean, I had BTO's greatest hits. I knew every word to all the hit songs, and and the Guess Who as well. So it was so cool to meet Randy, and he was so nice, and he was so he got what I was doing. He understood this approach that I was taking, where I was recording modern pop songs and rock songs and blues songs and country songs as jazz tunes, because he was doing that himself.
It was a parallel universe. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause he was, I mean, what was that? Was it, was it I Walk the Line, or,
well, there was a few of them. Yeah.
It wasn't Ring of Fire. I think it was,
I Walk the Line. Yeah.
He did a great version of I Walk the Line. That was so cool. And I mean, yeah, we were going after that same thing of, well, you can take a song that sounds this way, pull it apart, put it back together over here, sounding like this, and it'll work, and that's what Billie Holiday did. That's what Miles Davis did. That's what, Louis Armstrong did. That's what the great jazz musicians did. They took pop songs of their day or the day before, and they reinvented them as jazz tunes. And so that's been my main focus as a jazz artist, is sort of reinventing the idea of what a jazz tune can be.
Yeah, well, you often hear in jazz solos and stuff where they sort of pay tribute to little pop songs. I remember, you hear a solo, and all of a sudden in the middle of a solo, you'll hear something like da 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 da. Da 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 da. Like it really got me. And then they'd branch off.
Quote jazz. One of the tricks, is to quote songs. That's an age old thing, and in jazz music, and also a lot of the like especially the bebop guys, Charlie Parker, Dizzy, they would take pop the chords. Basically the skeleton of a pop song, and then turn it and then write an entirely different melody over the top of those chords. So many of Charlie Parker's big standards were just basically the bones of a pop tune that he decided to play an entirely different melody over. So yeah, jazz. I like jazz. I mean, I'm not just a jazz artist. I'm not a jazz saxophone player. I'm a blues saxophone player. I'm a rhythm and blues saxophone player. I grew up wanting to be Jimmy Page. Only I played sax. I wanted to be B.B. King. I wanted to be, I really wanted to be a rock and roll / blues guitar player, but I played tenor saxophone. So I learned, I play much better in guitar keys than I do in jazz keys. Most jazz tunes are in A flat or E flat or B flat. I love playing in G. I love playing in A. And most jazz guys would be like, well, they can play in those keys, but they'd much rather play in the flat keys. It's very funny, but I'm as a singer, I love country singers. I love Willie Nelson. I love rock and roll singers. I love blues singers. I've taken from so many different people, phrasing wise and just technique wise, from Ray Charles to
Paul Rogers.
to Paul Rogers, great singer. To people who don't have great voices. I mean, I think Bob Dylan is a great singer. I don't think he has a great voice all the time, although I think he, frankly, throughout his career, hid what a good voice he actually had. I think he was, by creating these different characters in his vocalization. But you don't have to have a Pavarotti voice to be a great singer. Some of my favorite singers can barely sing in tune. John Prine is another guy who didn't have a great voice, but God, when he sang a song, I believed every word. And that's what it's about for me these days in particular, is just, are you telling a good story? Are you telling an honest story? Are you
testifying? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. exactly. Well, that's. I'm learning a lot by this conversation. I thank you. This is great stuff. It's great for my brain. But when we did that, getting back to that live at the rehearsal hall, which was 2004, mind you, that was like a year after you moved back to Idaho.
Yeah, it's crazy how long. I mean, time flies like a very fast bird. It's going by fast. A
little secret. That was the very first time I'd ever played upright bass in my life. Was that show?
Wow. Well,
if you happen to see the video and you look at my bass, you'll see ring binder, those little reinforcement circles that you put on.
Yeah, you had them.
I have them as fret markers, so I know where the hell I am on the neck.
Oh, that's great! Wow, you faked it damn well. That was really great.
But your version of "I Feel Fine," talk about now. That was so beautifully stripped down. I especially loved the bridge. She's my little girl. It was just gorgeous.
So much of that is Larry Goldings. I have to give credit where credit is due. Larry Goldings is a great, one of the great jazz keyboardists, pianists, organists. He's a little bit younger than I. He's in his early 50s. He's had his own organ trio called the Larry Goldings Trio with with Bill Stewart on drums and Pete Bernstein on guitar, who are both, they are also kind of, some of the greats of their generation in jazz. Larry also plays keyboard. He's been James Taylor's keyboardist for the last 20 years.
That's where I know the name. Okay.
Yeah. And Larry and I would take these songs. I would call him and say, "Hey, I was just in the shower and I was singing I Feel Fine. And so what if we took that guitar part, do 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 do, and instead, what if we just use that as the bass line and only parts of it? Do 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 do." And he said, yeah, I get it. And so he'd play around with it a while. But that bridge for sure is to all Larry, those amazing substitutions that don't sound anything like what the Beatles played, but it's still entirely, that song, it's still entirely, I'm not sure. I think that's a McCartney tune.
No, it's a Lennon tune.
Is it a Lennon tune? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you go back that far, I get a little confused as to, baby says, yeah. Anyway, I was proud of that one. Yeah. There are times in making these jazz records with modern pop songs where I really walk the line between cool and cheesy. You can fall over that line into, oh, that just sounds loungy and dorky. But I think we just stayed on the cool side of it by just making it edgier and as long as you keep some edge and don't get into too much hey Jack, hey, where are you from?
You start turning into Bill Murray.
Yeah, there is that possibility. Star Wars, kooky, crazy Star Wars.
I know. God, I mean, talking to Paul Schaefer about that stuff, he just loved that whole thing. And that was actually where he sort of came out of being just in the house band. Everybody thought he was the leader of the band on Saturday Night Live, but he wasn't. He was just the keyboard player because, what's his name from Lighthouse was the actual band leader, and he wanted to stay in the background. And Paul just sort of, because of his glasses and the way he looked and stuff, sort of rose to prominence. Anyway,
yeah, and Paul is so funny and so smart. He's so clever, such a unique sort of a person and performer, aside from being, a musical a dictionary or encyclopedia.
He's a walking anthology. He really is. And what blew my mind, and just a little sidebar here, was I worked with him a couple of times. And so one was at the Roseland Ballroom in New York, which was right across from David Letterman Theater at the time, before now the Stephen Colbert Show. But he's from Thunder Bay. I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So we started talking. He starts mentioning all the musicians in my hometown that he knew. And I'm going, not only was he an anthology for all the greats in the world, he knew everything from Sault Ste. Marie, which blew my mind, because that's not that close. It's 450 miles, not kilometers, miles. Yeah. So that's a long trip for him to know about all the musicians in Sault Ste. Marie. And he's just a music lover. He really is.
He really is. Yeah. I get a kick out of him. I got to do something. I mean, I was on the show, on the Letterman show years ago. I played with my band, not with the house band, but I met him then. But then some years after that, I got to sing with Ben E. King. I got to do a duet of You've Lost That Love and Feeling when they inducted Phil Spector into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which was a very weird. I met Phil Spector very briefly. What a wacky cat, man. He was, but I got to sing with Benny King. I got to sing You've Lost That Love and Feeling. And I sang the high part. I mean, it was crazy. I was just squeezing anyway, it was very interesting. But getting to play with Benny King or sing with Benny King was, of course, a life experience, but also getting to play with that band, which was Paul and Blue Lou Marini was in the band, and several guys that I'd grown up just idolizing. But Paul was great. He was very, very nice to me. He was kind of hard on Benny King, actually. Benny was singing the melody a little bit away from the Bill Medley thing, and Paul would stop the band and say, no, you got to do it this way. Got to do it like the record. And I was like, Jesus, I can't believe he's talking to Benny King this way. He's going to murder me. So, but when I sang, he didn't give me a hard time at all. I was so glad. I probably would have just died of embarrassment or crumbled. So he took care of me. He knew Benny King could handle it.
Yeah, I guess so. Was Will Lee part of that with you guys?
I think Will was playing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. It's been a long time.
But Will Lee was actually, I think he was fairly integral on Paul getting into the session world in New York before Letterman and all that stuff, before Saturday Night Live even. I think the first things they worked on was Barry Manilow albums.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm actually Barry Manilow, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually opening for Barry in England next month. I've
really?
Got or in the UK, Scotland, Wales.
Oh,
and England,
I saw him in Vegas and I just loved it. But there's one thing he did that I could not freaking figure out for the life of me.
What?
His show, he's singing, he's got plexiglass behind the band. That's fine. Low volume. He knows the age group of his audience, right?
Yeah.
He had his microphone at his waist.
It's wild. Isn't it?
A handheld microphone, holding it down at his waist, and he's singing. And I'm going, this is a sound man's nightmare. Like how?
It sounded fine, right?
Well, he was above the mix, but it was thin. And I was trying to figure out why he had his microphone down there. Of course, when he was at the piano, it was a normal space because the piano was there and it's static situation. But but aside from that, it was an amazing show. And
I'll watch for that. I opened from about 18. Well, basically right about the time that you and I met. At some point right around then, I did a couple of tours opening for him, and I was just amazed. I mean, I didn't, I grew up liking Barry Manilow as a kid. I
love him. I've always loved him.
But he's not considered cool, but he has, by just having so many great songs and being such a musician with integrity, he has just stayed. He stayed the course, and he's an absolute legend. And the number of hit songs. I mean, it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Oh my God, there's that one. As he played. Dogs. All right, it's a squirrel. There's squirrels everywhere, guys. We've got the front door open.
I know. I got the same thing with Jenny at the backyard. We live on a little lake here, and and we got an arbutus tree in the backyard. Do you know what an arbutus tree is?
No,
they're only native to this area. They're a beautiful tree. They're a hybrid. They're not evergreen. They're not deciduous. They don't lose their leaves. They shed bark. It's a weird thing. It's the thing. What I'm getting at. There's never a time in the year where I'm not picking up things off that damn tree. It's either shedding leaves, or it's shedding bark, or it's shedding seeds, or it's shedding this, and it's weird. But anyway, they're also an endangered tree, so you're not allowed to cut them down. So because they're only native to this area. So I have one that grows right out of my deck. I built the deck around the tree. And so the squirrels are running up and down that thing. And Jenny just, oh my God.
Dogs love to hate squirrels almost as much as they love to hate mailmen.
Yeah, I know. What is it with that? We got the most wonderful, sweet mailman, and Jenny just goes nuts on him.
Us too. But then if they happen to be in the yard and our mailman shows up, they'll bark at him, and then he opens the gate and they're all over him. They adore him. They lick him to, it's just like,
Yeah,
they're just trained to be pissed at that person that shows up every day. But once he comes in, they're just like, oh, great. How you doing? Oh. It's dogs.
It's almost like maybe it's there was that Far Side cartoon where it said some scientist through some sort of technology or whatever finally has deciphered what dogs are saying, and you see dogs all over the neighborhood, and all they're saying is hey.
Yep.
Hey. That's all they're saying with their barking.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's what my wife keeps telling me. They're just saying hi. I was like, I know, but they're saying it really loud. Could they say it more quietly? Anyway, I don't even know what we were talking about now. Oh, the Barry Manilow. Yeah, just he's so great, and I'm really looking forward to being on the road with him again. I mean, last time, I got to fly around on his private jet every now and then, and he's always been really, really nice to me. He's always talked about me in the press. Who are you listening to? Oh, I'm listening to Curtis Stigers. He makes great records. It's like, he doesn't have to do that. He's always been really kind to me.
He's gracious. Well, Elton John's much the same way.
Oh God, I love that guy.
There's a great story there was a girl from Canada named Amanda Marshall.
Yes, I know Amanda. Sure.
Yeah, and Amanda broke with this album, and so she was playing. She just started to break. She hadn't been on major TV or anything like that, and she was playing this pub in Banff, Alberta, called Wild Bill's. I played there a few times myself, and it's like a rustic log cabin styled pub. She's there rehearsing with her band, and there's a phone call, and the guy says, hi, this is Elton John. I'd like to speak with Amanda Marshall. He found out she was at where she was playing.
Wow.
And so somebody says, Elton John wants you on the phone. And she went, oh God, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
4 times he got hung up on. He finally called. She gets on the phone and says, sorry, I know you realize this might be peculiar, but it really is Elton John. And he said, he says, I love your album. Because he was one of those guys that went to record stores once a week and bought everything new and listened to it.
Yes.
It's pretty widely reported that he probably still does that. And he said, I love your single. This is the one you should release next.
Wow.
He says, I just want you to say that. He says, I love this song. Just please do it. And so now she's on the Rosie O'Donnell show. This goes back a few years, and she's telling this story. And then Rosie O'Donnell brings it up when Elton John shows up on the show. And so they're both telling their side of that story. And it was really quite fascinating.
That's cool.
But there's another guy. There's another guy that
record.
supports artists that are coming up.
Yeah, when my first album was out, the first time I worked with Elton, I opened for him and Eric Clapton and Bonnie Raitt at Wembley Stadium for a 3-day weekend.
Well, that's tough.
It was insane, because the first album I ever bought was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I had 2 or 3 Elton John posters on my wall. He was my hero, because he wasn't just a flamboyant pop star. He wasn't just a great singer. He wasn't just a great musician. He wasn't just a great songwriter. He was all of those things. And he was funny and smart and could host TV shows. You know what I mean? He was I loved him. And so that first day when we were after sound check, someone said, come with me. We're going to take you to meet somebody. And they knocked on the door, and Elton John enters his door of his dressing room, and I go in, and I'm hanging out with Elton John all by myself, and we're just chatting it was just incredible. And there's a knock on the door, and he opens it, and there's Bonnie Raitt, who's another hero of mine. So that was one of, I've had a lot of really lucky moments like that in my career, where I've gotten to meet my idols, and for the most part, they've been fantastic. They've been lovely people. Occasionally you bump into somebody who's a dick, and you walk, you get past it. But
sometimes people have a bad day.
That's true.
And it's hard to always have your game face on.
It is. You can't always be, super fun. But there are also times. there are some people you can just tell they're always like that. I won't name any names, but yeah, there were just once or twice. But for the most part, I mean, the people that have been so kind to me, it's amazing. You know, I was telling a story. I was friends with Michael Brecker, the legendary saxophonist. He became a friend of mine in the early 90s, and we were friends until his death, his very early and sad.
Well, the Brecker brothers were famous, you know.
Yeah, and he was one of the greatest sax players in the history. I mean, one of the greatest musicians I think who ever lived. And Paul Simon would always, when he would play with Paul, tour with Paul, Paul would give him a feature. It would just be a saxophone section of the show, but he was that great, and he respected him that much. And at the end of a show, I went to see Paul Simon in New York City. My then wife and I went to see them see Paul Simon play at the Madison Square Garden, but there's a theater below it. At that time, it was called the Paramount Theater. And at the end of the show, we met Michael Brecker at the stage door at the front of the stage, or at side of the stage. And Michael Brecker took us back through the labyrinth of halls and then knocked on a door, and the door opens and there's Paul Simon. So we walk in, and I'm there with my wife and Michael Brecker, my childhood hero as a saxophonist, and Paul Simon, you know, my great hero, singer-songwriter hero, just amazing. And Paul and I talked about Clive Davis, and, you know, he was asking me questions about, I mean, it was insane. It was just so great. There's a knock on the door, and Paul goes to the door, answers it. It's James Taylor. And James Taylor walks in.
No.
So there I am with like three of my absolute idols, and I could barely breathe. It was really.
Oh man, you've had some incredible moments.
I'm really lucky. That's one of my favorite parts. I mean, I love making music for a living, and I get to do that. And on top of that, I get to meet some of my heroes. It's extraordinary.
Well, and aside from all that, getting back to it, you're carving your own path through it all. And you're enjoying your life. You've got a good life. You know, You've got a beautiful home. You can tell behind you. It's not
a
like
good kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, I think your kitchen is the size of my whole downstairs.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. This place I never thought I'd live in a house like this. I mean, it's not a huge house. It looks bigger than it maybe is, but this is a big part of the downstairs. This is where we spend most of our time. And this is where I spent my pandemic. You know, that's why my show is called Songs from My Kitchen, because I found that here I was for a year and a half, not making a living, sitting around in my kitchen playing my guitar to my dogs, you know, because my wife was off saving the world, being an executive director of a homeless shelter. And so
man, what an admirable profession that is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's a saint.
How did you meet her?
We met actually doing a fundraiser for a local DJ who had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He was basically given a year to live, and he was a beloved DJ. This is many years ago, 16 years ago. And he, oh boy, dogs are barking again. Anyway, he had a year to live. And so I was asked to put together a fundraiser concert to basically give him money that he could go see his family and that sort of a thing, not to pay his bills, not to pay his medical bills, but just to anyway, we
give him a bit of a quality of life.
Exactly. So, and I met Jody. She was the head of marketing for that. She did a great job of marketing. We were both married. We had kids, we had lives, but we became friends because of this thing. And I said, wow, I have this idea for a Christmas show. I used to do this show in New York with, I used to be on someone else's show where it was a fundraiser and they'd bring in a lot of people in, kind of a variety show. And it was called the Extreme Xmas Extravaganza, or something like that. The Xmas Extravaganza. It was Glenn Burtnick's Xmas Extravaganza. And she said, let's do it. We'll put it together. We'll do it this December. Only I'm Jewish, so it's a holiday show. And I said, perfect. And so we became really good friends, and we ended up raising money for this homeless shelter. We did it every December, and became good friends and worked on this. And then her marriage broke up, and then a couple of years later, my marriage broke up. And then about a year after that, I just looked at her and thought, wait a minute, you're my dear friend, and we get along great, and you're you're good looking. I hadn't quite noticed that because I was a good man. And so anyway, we fell in love years later, and we've raised a couple of $1 million for this homeless shelter. And over that time, she went from being a marketing person to being the executive director of a homeless shelter, because she found her calling.
Yeah, she's got a passion for it. Yeah.
And it's a brutal job. I mean, it's really painful, and
it's Heartbreak City. I have not dealings with that, but I have dealings with addiction in my family. So I sort of walk that line a lot.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
And addiction is one of the things that leads to some of the hardships that these people get themselves into, but also not just addiction, not just mental health. It's just the fact that you can't find a place to live for an affordable price anymore. I mean, Boise, Idaho has been named like the most unaffordable city in the United States right now for housing. It's crazy. Everything has tripled in price here in the last 5 years. And so people are falling out of their housing by the week. That
seems to be such a common occurrence. The same thing has happened here in Victoria and Vancouver. Yeah. And what you're finding here coming out of the pandemic is signs everywhere, help wanted. And only because they can't pay people enough for them to afford a place to live. Yeah. Because to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in Victoria, even on the outskirts of Victoria, is $1,500 a month. Yeah. That's like a studio suite. Like, how can you survive on that?
No, I know.
You can't make enough money to get that to happen.
Absolutely. And certainly not on minimum wage. It's crazy. And Idaho was always so cheap, and suddenly it's just the opposite. It's unaffordable, and something has to, the rich are getting richer and the poor are falling off, off the edge of the world. There has to be some sort of coming together. We can't just I could get all preachy here, but
it's okay. Me and you share a very common allegiance to that stuff. I try not to go there on these podcasts, but we both understand each other perfectly.
We have to take care of people. The people that have to take care of the people that don't have. You can't just say, pull up your bootstraps, go get a job, because there aren't jobs and there aren't bootstraps. No one has bootstraps anymore. They just don't exist. And if you have millions and millions and millions of dollars, you don't necessarily have to spend it on a penis-shaped spaceship to go up into orbit. You could possibly, save lives and put people in houses and feed people. There's so much money out there, and it's just being compounded and grown by people who have enough.
Even on a smaller scale, as you know, up here in Canada, we have healthcare, and our healthcare is free, quote unquote. I mean, we pay for it in your taxes. We pay for it with booze, booze taxes and gas taxes, that sort of thing. Sure. But who cares? I don't care. My wife is a cancer survivor. None of her stuff she had to pay for out of pocket. Not one thing.
Yeah. And in America, people go bankrupt and end up homeless because they get cancer or because their wife gets cancer. So many of the people at the shelter that we support, that my wife runs, that's what has happened. It's one.
They had everything and lost it all.
Lost it all.
Due to sickness. Like, how insane is that?
Yeah,
anyway, but getting back to it, I remember a very right-wing friend of mine was talking one day, and he says, I went to the hospital with my daughter yesterday, and the lineup was ridiculous. He said, and it's like, he says, look, we eat good food and we go to the gym and we work out and stuff. You'd think that when we go to the hospital, we should be able to get in to see a doctor quicker than those people that don't look after themselves. And I went, wait a minute. That's because you live a privileged life. You don't see, they just don't see that side of it. Yeah. It's like, it's like, that person can't pay for a gym membership. That person can't go to Choices or Quality Foods or whatever the places are to get these high-end foods that you're eating. And they don't have 6-figure incomes, Anyway, I could get very preachy myself, and I vowed not to do it. But it drives me crazy. I don't understand it. I don't understand why they can't see the basic math of it.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Anyway, I got to say something, because you're probably the only guest. I have had guests on the show, but it didn't work out. You're the only guy that's actually kind of set up to perform.
I am.
We don't have to do it now, but I'd love to hear you do. Oh, hey, there's Jenny. Can you hear her?
Hey, Jenny. Yeah.
You know why? You know why? What that is? The mailman's here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You have a late mailman. My mailman comes right in the middle of my my live stream show. Always at the wrong time, which is funny. It's fun to have the dog. My dogs really are co-stars of my show. All right. Well, I can certainly play you a song. I just saw a video. I just saw a video that you posted. It looked like a selfie done video, and it's done to look like old VHS. Yes.
And it was a remake.
Yeah. Peace, Love, and Understanding.
Yeah.
By Nick Lowe, which
that's the one you did on the Bodyguard soundtrack. On
the Bodyguard soundtrack.
Yeah, I wanted you to tell the people about it. That's why I sort of led you into it.
Yeah, well, it's on my album. It's on my new album, This Life. And what I've done is I've re-recorded a lot of songs that I've recorded before, the way we do them now. My music sounds different on stage than it did in 1991, 1992, because I now tour as a jazz quintet. And so we had to find a way to play the songs that people come out to my shows to hear me sing, like my hit songs, but also like What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding.
And This Life,
which is
from Sons of Anarchy.
Which is the Sons of Anarchy theme song, and it's the title track of the new album. And we do them differently. They sound like another band is playing them, but I'm still singing them. So with Peace, Love, and Understanding, we found a way to do it. On the original, on my original version of it, it was kind of like a rhythm and blues sort of rave up thing with a bit of an early 90s slant, which was a little bit slicker than now I hear it. I think, oh God, I don't know, maybe everyone does that, but every time I hear one of my old records, I think, oh, if I'd have just done this. But anyway, so this time around, the way we play it now, it sounds like kind of a 60s soul jazz boogaloo thing. And that video, it was basically a collaboration I did with this video editor, video maker out in Long Island. I've still never met him. As a matter of fact, his name is totally slipping my mind right now because I've got so many names in my old brain. But I found him through my publicist, and for a very affordable price, he created this video. I sent him. I just walked around my town. I walked around Boise with a selfie stick and just basically made my town the star of this video. And then he found all this found footage of stuff that sort of fit in with the idea of, the concept of the song. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? Is all hope lost? Is there only pain and hatred and misery? That's Nick Lowe's song. And originally Nick wrote it in kind of a sarcastic way. He meant it sort of as satire. But now when he sings it, he says he feels that. I think
it's sad how things have changed.
Yeah, and in this day and age, it's kind of hard to make fun of people that are saying, trying to find peace and love and understanding. Anyway, so that, I really love what he did with that. He, at the last minute, he said, hey, what if, because I was thinking maybe it should be more like sort of 60s looking because the sound of the record is sort of 60s soul jazz. And he thought, well, but what if I'm going to send you a version that looks like it's done, on VHS, and you just tell me if you don't like it, that's fine. And he sent it. It was like, oh my God, this is just like, every video we used to make as, in my punk rock band back in high school. And so, I dig it. But Peace, Love, and Understanding, it's a song that it led me to a lot of different places. I mean, one of the things is that I'm friends with Nick Lowe. I'm friends with one of my heroes. As a kid, Nick Lowe was one of my idols, and now he's my pal. Because I made him $1 million.
Well, that was a great album to have a song on.
Boy, yeah, we were lucky. That was entirely on the coattails of the massive hits
I will love you. Yeah.
Whitney Houston. Yeah, she
I
had
will always love you.
five hit songs on that. Yeah, the great Dolly Parton song, but there were, I'm Every Woman, and there were 5 songs that were just massive, and it sold 45 million copies. So I always say in concert, it allowed me to be friends with my hero Nick Lowe, and it also allows my ex-wife to have a really nice house, and I get a good laugh out of that. Ha ha ha! Ex-wife joke. Anyway, it's cool. Well, maybe I should play that for you. Maybe I should.
Yeah, I love it. You got a nice collection of guitars there. Is that a Gibson J45?
That's a J4. This is, I'll bring this up. This was a gift from none other than Nick Lowe. He sent this to me. I'd borrowed it from him on a. I borrowed it from him. I went over and did a couple of solo dates years and years ago, back in sort of the late aughts. I did a little solo tour, and here, let me bring this down here so you can hear me sing and play.
So it is a J45, right?
It's a Gibson J45, and I borrowed it from Nick to do this tour. He even loaned me his car to drive around England for a week, and then.
He really was grateful for the Bodyguard.
He was very nice to me. He was he's always been very sweet to me. And so one day right before Christmas, I was right in the middle of my divorce, and I was just heartbroken. I was having a terrible year, and it was right before Christmas, and this box shows up at my UPS store where I have my mailbox, and there's a slip in the box, and it said there's a package for you, and it's this huge box, and I didn't know what it was, but then I realized it was from some music store in London. What the hell is this? And I got it home and opened it up, and it was a gift of this guitar from Nick Lowe, just because we knew each other, and obviously he was saying thank you again he must have gotten another big check or something. but yeah, so it's nice to be able to sing a Nick Lowe song on this Nick Lowe guitar.
Great.
As I walk through this wicked world, searching for light in the darkness of insanity, I ask myself, is all hope lost? Is there only pain and hatred and misery? And each time I feel like this inside, one thing I want to know, understanding. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about that? As I walk on through these troubled times, my spirit gets so downhearted sometimes. Where are the strong? And who are the trusted? Where is that harmony, sweet harmony? And each time I feel it slipping away, just makes me want to cry. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about that? Peace, love, and understanding.
Wow, bravo, brother. Very nice. That's so great.
Thank you.
So what other guitars do you have back there?
Well, that one there, can you see? Yeah, the big one in front, that's a Tacoma. It's a baritone guitar. I played, this is where I do my Wednesday show, my songs from my kitchen show. So I bring everything up. I've got, anyway, I've got a lot of crap that you can't see, but I played, actually I played today because I'm going to Minneapolis next week to play. I played a Prince song. I played, the one that Sinead O'Connor did, Nothing Compares to You. I played that, and I wanted to play it in a certain key. I'm not any great shakes as a guitar player, so I have to play in a few keys that work for me, and I wanted to play it in C, and it was just a little too high to play it on this, actually way too high. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just go get the baritone and see how it sounds in C on that, and it sounded really cool. So that's my baritone. I don't play it all that much, but it's really fun to play because it's weird,
Yeah, I love baritone guitars.
And then the other one is a Taylor. What is it? I can't remember which one it is, but it's one I've had. It was the first really nice acoustic guitar that I bought for myself. I've had that about 15 or 16 years. I had a lot of trouble with it. With the electronics, it kept making this weird little noise, the pickup system, which sounded great, except when I played a quiet song, it would just go click, 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 click. Just, you could only hear it when I plugged it in and played a really quiet song. And finally, I sent it back to them. They said they fixed it, and it never got fixed. So I just stopped. I unplugged that stuff and put a whole different system in, and now it works really nicely. But I love guitars. I'm not really a guitar player. I'm a singer-songwriter guitar player. But I just, when I see a guitar that I really love, it's hard for me not to at least consider buying it. I've also got a little Martin Shenandoah that I keep up in my bedroom that, if I feel the urge to play when I'm upstairs, it's hanging on the wall for me. Anyway,
it's not a parlor size guitar though. The Martin.
The Martin is not. It's not the really skinny one, but
because there's the one that Sting plays. It's almost like a parlor size. Yeah, really,
those
tiny.
Are so pretty. I love those little slim waisted ones. Yeah, someday I have to get one of those too.
There's a band that plays in Nashville. They play downtown. They're called Brazil Billy. If you ever get to next time you get to Nashville, I'm hoping they still play down there. They are marvelous, and the guy who sings he's sort of a throwback to what's his name? El Paso. Yeah,
just flew out of my head. The Gunfighter Ballad.
What's his name? Greatest
Marty Robbins.
Yeah. And this guy has a voice. It's very reminiscent of that. Dresses sort of he must have Mexican descent in him because he sort of dresses that sort of way, and he's got one of those small little parlor guitars. But they are such a good band, and the song choices are perfect for his voice. And every time I've gone there, me and my cronies have been there just to watch that band over and over again. Really good players. Anyway,
that's great.
So Brazil Billy just got a good plug.
That's great. Yeah. Well done.
So while I got you here, I'd be kind of dumb if I didn't ask you to do a little of this live.
Oh, okay.
Can you do that?
Yep. Let me do it in the right key. Actually, I tend to not do anything in the key from the original records. Like I've lowered everything, and I don't give a damn. I don't care what anybody thinks. I feel like, in 1991, I was a smart ass kid who thought he could sing really high for the rest of his life. But I'm a baritone who can sneak up into a tenor register every now and then. And I was trying to prove who I was. Let me get a glass of water here. Let's see. Right into this world all alone. God takes your soul, you're on your own. The crow flies straight, perfect line, on the devil's back till you die. Life is short, baby, that's a fact. Gotta live it right, 'cause you ain't coming back. Gotta raise some hell before they put you down. You gotta live this life. Gotta look this world in the eye. You gotta live this life until you die. Yeah, you gotta have a soul, nothing less. 'Cause when it's business time, it's life or death. The king is dead, but life goes on. Don't lose your head when the deal goes down. Gotta keep your eyes on the road ahead. You gotta live this life. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You gotta look this world in the eye. You gotta live this life until you die.
Awesome. That song just suited that show. They picked wisely, boy.
Yeah, well, Bob wrote it. He just tailor-made it for that show. Bob Thiel Jr., I think, is a remarkable musician and songwriter and producer. He co-produced my third record, Brighter Days, and he really oh boy, angry dogs. There's the neighbor who lives across the street and has never done anything to offend them, but they always have to go yell at him. So anyway, yeah, Bob is brilliant. He and Kurt Sutter, the creator of the show, the executive producer of the show, they chose all that music so well. I mean, not just the theme song, but every scene had a cool song, and it was always a surprise. It's like, wow, really? Did you?
I agree. I was always pleasantly surprised at what happened musically on that show. It was really great.
Yeah, it really, the music was a character in it, it was a character on the show as much as any of the actors. It really had a place that it framed so many of the scenes and so many of the storylines.
I wanted to do something just before we close, if you wouldn't mind. I've got some pictures that I was hoping that maybe you could sort of, they're just at random. They're just random things that I found. And I just wanted to see if we can get some comments from you.
Thanks for joining us. Check out our many other episodes and vignettes for more great content. And please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member at socialenergypresents.com to access all our content and earn valuable energy points just for watching.